Good day everyone, and welcome to the channel. It's Londononion here with another Back 4 Blood character build. And the character we'll be building in this video is Karlee. Now generally I would say cleaners fall on a spectrum of roles/categories ranging from offensive, supportive, and defensive. And of course the degrees in between, as we will uncover throughout the series. Just for consistency, I will define offensive roles and perks as abilities that are directly intended to increase damage or bolster offensive capabilities. Defensive roles and perks will be defined as abilities that directly increase survivability from punishment. Lastly, supportive roles and perks are defined as alternative skills that can be instrumentally used for offensive or defensive purposes without a defined intention for either polarization, but are ultimately a helpful perk for one's team. First, we will have a brief overview of our chosen cleaner, go through relevant cards that will either synergize or compensate with their attributes, and conclude with what I consider to be the main tactics to maximize the use of their abilities, as well as my closing statements. Now, for those who are present during our weapon reviews and deck builds, each weapon-centered deck build came with character designations. Our format with character builds will be similar, but with more priority to a given character and maximizing their role on a given team. So starting off with the character attributes of Karlee. Karlee has the unique ability to sense nearby hazards and mutations, and can ping them for all other cleaners to see. She starts with one additional quick inventory slot. Lastly, she has a team effect of increased use speed by 50%. Now, in regards to our spectrum, it is the attributes that we will use to designate each cleaner. In Karlee's case, I would classify her Sixth Sense for hazards and mutations to be a supportive perk, her extra quick inventory slot a supportive perk, and her increased team use speed I would also classify as a supportive perk. With that said, Karlee is a hardcore supportive cleaner. Now, in regards to card selection, we can compensate with the more defensive and offensive cards, and we can synergize with more related and compounding cards, depending on needs and playstyle. And naturally, there is the option of creating a mixture or specialization, but if you ask me, a quintessential cleaner is not one that is good at everything, but one that fulfills their role in the best manner to aid the overall effectiveness of their team. So starting ourselves off with her deck build. Because of her designation on our spectrum, she is one of the more open-ended cleaners as a supportive type, and is therefore more difficult to make into a distinguishable cleaner. However, Karlee's skill set seems to point in the direction of adaptivity and efficiency. Almost like a Hoffman, she likes to be prepared for anything but without necessarily having everything. This is evident in her extra sensing capability and her extra quick inventory slot. She can predict an incoming threat and/or have a series of tools to take on obstacles. How those are addressed is where her expertise comes into play. In addition, Karlee is a cleaner of seamless progression and minimizing hindrances, but this will be explored later in our discussion. Moving on to our card selections, our first card will be Adrenaline Fueled, which grants 5 stamina units upon eliminating an enemy, and an additional 7 stamina units over 7 seconds, and this stacks 5 times. Next, Hellfire increases move speed by 45% while firing and 3% while not firing. Utility Scavenger increases the frequency of quick accessories and allows them to be spotted easier. Meth grants 5% increased melee speed and stamina efficiency for every melee swing, and stacks 10 times. Melee attacks will no longer stick in tough enemies, but this will also disable ADS. Following, I employ Shredder, which increases bullet damage by 1% for 3 seconds for every landed round and will stack 15 times. Killer's Instinct increases weak spot damage by 30%, but will also disable ADS. Next, we have Mean Drunk, which increases melee damage by 40% and allows melee strikes to affect a large area. Optics Enthusiast increases accuracy by 30%. March for Death increases team damage to highlighted mutations by 10%. Quick Kill increases accuracy by 50% but also disables ADS. Fanny Pack adds one additional support inventory slot and increases trauma resistance by 15%. Life Insurance grants one extra life and has a team effect of 15% reduced incapacitation trauma. Copper Scavenger increases the spawn rate of copper and increases their visibility. Money Grubbers adds an additional 3 copper every time a pile is picked up and stacks 25 times. Lastly, Bounty Hunter grants 10 copper for every mutation eliminated and maxes out after 30 mutations, or 300 extra copper per level. Overall, Karlee's accuracy will increase by a grand total of 80%, and her general damage will increase by a grand total of 25% provided the Shredder conditions are met. Now this build pretty much amplifies, and I would argue further defines, Karlee's meta. In addition to sensing hazards and mutations, she can aid her team's offensive capability in their elimination. Her disabled ADS with significantly increased accuracy creates a Left 4 Dead style of gameplay, which in this Onion's opinion allows a faster style of play and would go in synergy with maximizing efficiency without being a speedrunner, which I don't fully support as a team-based game. Lastly, with Utility Scavenger and her copper-enhancing cards, she'll have an easier time being prepared for whatever challenges each stage will throw toward her. Now, there is no particular loadout being recommended with this build, which speaks to Karlee's open-ended role. But this will transition us to the tactical implications of Karlee and her placement on a team. Now, as touched on earlier, Karlee is all about efficiency and adaptability, being prepared for anything without having everything. Her lack of weapon-based cards allows a level of adaptability with some offensive augmentation from Killer's Instinct, Shredder, and March for Death. However, I would say her Sixth Sense, mixed with her heightened accuracy and naturally faster maneuverability, is an instrumental aspect of her offense and defense. Additionally, as implied by Mean Drunk and Meth Head, I would opt for a melee weapon for Karlee to enhance her adaptability, particularly with hordes. This is enhanced with Meth Head and Mean Drunk. Now this is far from a melee specialist, but Karlee can make do with virtually any weapon she may need to carry, both ranged and melee based. In regards to team gameplay and placement, I would argue that Karlee is best for an alpha role, or possibly the major role if there is already an established alpha. An alpha's main objective is being chief navigator of one's team, while having a general prowess of skills that can be used as a first response to threats. Her deck build allows detection of threats and the ability to either bash, slash, or shoot her way through hordes better than a good portion of other cleaners. As stated during our Walker build, the alpha is at the greatest risk for receiving damage and running into hazards, but this is exactly what Karlee defends against with her build and abilities. This is also why I employ Life Insurance, since one incapacitation is all one may have depending on difficulty. Now this build for Karlee creates more of an independent cleaner, but independent with the intent of supporting the rest. Karlee was a rather difficult cleaner to build for with a team-oriented plan, but her independence mixed with increased copper puts her in the perfect position to provide perks/team upgrades since she already covers her own bases with her skills. Her specialization is not having a specialization. She is fluid by nature, which is what allows her to be prepared for everything. Her offense and defense, however, is where her team comes in for the most part. After all, alpha does not mean the best, but simply best for that role. Now, I didn't think it necessary to enhance her use speed to ridiculous proportions, as I consider this less useful than the selected cards. But Karlee is a wild card in and of herself, in this Onion's opinion, and can be open to alternative builds aside from this one. With her unhindered speed and dexterity, versatility, and enhanced Sixth Sense, she can metaphorically be related to, well, Spider-Man from any of the Spider-Man movies, Bloodhound from Apex Legends, and Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord from the Marvel Universe. Now, everything in this discussion can be taken with a grain of salt, as deck build combinations are too complex for me to fairly evaluate them. However, this is the build I prefer to use when playing on the Nightmare and No Hope difficulty with Karlee. Now it is paramount to state that team maturity is ultimately what makes any deck work, and for those who are present during our last cleaner discussion, I'm using maturity as an umbrella term to describe each individual's general understanding of roles, navigation, character and weapon attributes, ridden/mutation deterrent tactics, resource management, and ultimately collaboration, as this is a team-based game. I would also argue that the greater one's team maturity is, the greater efficacy specializations, like the one we sort of just went through, will have, as each person will have a greater understanding of what it means to operate as a unit without being overbearing or breaking roles. Carrying on, less maturity will likely demand more of a compensating build, so as to provide support where there are more deficiencies. However, there is far more to compensate with than there is to specialize with, and would create an unnecessarily long discussion. Now, Karlee is only one piece of this giant cleaner pie, but this brings us to the end of our discussion today. Thank you guys for joining me on this one, and in our next video, the cleaner of discussion will be Hang, and we will determine where he sits on our spectrum of roles. It's been Londononion, and I will see you guys next time.